Okay, how about we get started? Hello, everyone. If you wouldn't mind, for those who are not who seeing me get started, if you wouldn't mind nudging. I am so excited to have Nancy Rourke with us today, and she is here for 10 days. We have been planning diligently to work out all of the logistics to get Nancy here, and we thank you so much. We also want to thank the donors and the sponsors for making this event happen. There are several events happening throughout the week, and we can't. So here we are live in person and on Zoom. I can see that more and more folks are joining the Zoom from Massachusetts and Texas and other states. So welcome everyone. If you have any questions in Zoom land, feel free to type it in the chat or turn your camera on, and I'm happy to mirror your comments in sign language to the audience. If you have any questions, anybody in the audience here or on Zoom, please don't feel you need to sit on your questions and wait until the end. Feel free to ask questions at any point in time. So the floor is yours, Nancy. Welcome.
Wow. Welcome, University of Southern Maine. I am so excited to be here. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. This land acknowledgement, we use the sign that indicates both your mind and your heart. Where we are currently sitting and standing and working and eating and sleeping, this land belongs to the native ancestors. This is the ancestral land of the Wabanaki people of Maine. There are 5 within the Wabanaki Confederacy. We have the Abenaki, Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, and the Mi'kmaq people. These tribes do not have a name in sign language yet, so we have to spell all those names. So now for me, I am Nancy Rourke. My name in sign language is the letter N and the number 3. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a Surdism and Devia artist since 2009. I have an MFA degree in computer graphic design and fine art and painting. I am an artist in residence since 2008 in Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, which is where I'm from. I am an official enrolled member of the Mesa Grande Band of Mission Indians. It's a nation in California. My father is indigenous. My mother is Czech from the Czech Republic, and her family moved to the United States. My tribe is Humeye, and it's signed like this. It means natives of the oaks. And this is our sign for people. So the tree gesture is the oak forest. And the people are the acorns. So this is an example. You can see in the photographs what the area looked like. And our tribe has our own reservation. Now, I want to explain more about the 3 types of mapping systems to show Devia. the timeline, the time period, and a diagram. So you can have a better sense of Devia and Surdism and the second wave of Devia and where these come from. Now, first, we're going to look at the timeline. During Goya's time and Berthier, there was, in fact, a little bit of Devia, deaf art, and deaf experience in their art. And you can see that in the picture that's included on this timeline. The emphasis on the ear, looking through the ear. As you know, Goya struggled with his hearing and a lot of ear pain. That's why he became deafened, possibly. So there is an element of the deafness in art. Deaf art movement was started in the late 60s, around 1968, forward from there.
Folks on Zoom are asking if the interpreters could speak up a bit, so we'll put the mic closer to the mouth.
Okay, hearing people are struggling to hear. We're going to try and make the microphone a little louder. These slides.
So you mentioned Czech Republic, Gallaudet, and the Arkansas as well. We have folks who are joining us from different areas here. I wanted to make sure that the sound is working okay, and I can feel the vibrations, so it seems like it's working.
Okay, now we're on to the second wave of Devia and that timeline. That started at the beginning of the Devia Manifesto in 1989, all the way through 2009. And that's when the second wave took place. At the same time, you can see in 2013, there was the Union flag, the designed flag for Surdism and Devia. I'll show you that on the timeline as well and show you more as we go through this. Now, another way to map the Devia deaf experience and the deaf art movement, that started in the late 60s, as you recall, the deaf art movement in the 60s. Then there was an organization called Spectrum, which is signed this way with your hands making something of a rainbow sort of shape. That was deaf artists, poets, authors, dancers, all coming together at a camp in Texas. And it was a fomentation of all of these various kinds of arts. Now, Devia had not been established yet, but this was a precursor. That was in, remember, that got started. So another example of charting or mapping this is 1989 through 2023, the present. So you can see the various manifestations of this, all stemming from the second wave of Devia. And it is still, Devia is still a live movement. Devia artists are still hard at work. It is an ongoing artistic movement. Now, in the meantime, other organizations have come online, such as Deafhood, the second wave of Devia, Surdism, and so forth. Yes, we have a question here.
I have a quick question. Before we get rolling, we just need to make sure that we have a mirror interpreter for Zoom. And So to repeat the question so that it can be mirrored to folks who are joining through Zoom, question from Amy in the audience is, would you mind explaining a bit more about what Divya is?
Yes, I certainly will do that. That's the bulk of my presentation. I wanted to start with the timeline to have us grounded in the time frames. Yes, we have another question.
And this is Sandra.
Okay, we're changing our plan here. Second question from a deaf audience member. That term that I just saw on your slide, Rourkeism, is that something you're going to discuss more? I want to know about that for sure. And Nancy says, yes, we definitely will. So as you can see more clearly, perhaps in this diagram and this map, you can see that each of these deaf artistic movements were in parallel, some simultaneous, but all moving in the same direction. There was social media and social justice efforts have all formed together to create this forward movement. Okay, so now we're going to move on to 2009, which is focusing on the bridge between Divya and Surdism. This person from France, a deaf-blind individual, was an artist, is an artist, and he developed his own manifesto called Surdism. He knew nothing about Divya. He had no exposure to it at all. While we started Divya, the second wave, and we were getting going right after I learned about deafhood. In that very same year, this artist in France was getting his work going in parallel. On this slide, you can see the 2013 second wave of Divya mural. I'm going to say it was like between 30 and 35 deaf artists who came together at a retreat full of meetings and workshops looking at the past, the present, and the future of our art movement. We also created a mural at this large gathering. Here you can see all the artists, up to 35 individuals working together, collaborating to make this huge mural. The mural now is on display in Kansas at a library on the deaf campus. It's every single element of this mural has symbolism and meaning behind everything, as do all the elements of Divya. So now, the moment you've waited for, I'm going to explain more about Divya. You can see here, this is an image of the first manifesto. That's how we sign manifesto. So it's a drawing showing what the manifesto is in English words. We've got two, but now this big painting is gone. Nobody knows what happened to it. Unfortunately, it may have been stolen. It possibly, no one knows where that is. So, yes, we have a question. No, it's not a question. It's a Zoom question. Okay, the question on Zoom is, why is this the sign for manifesto? Can you please explain that a little bit more? Well, the truth is, I learned that sign from France. We borrowed it from the Surdism movement. I guess it's it could look like the meaning and all the elements of the manifesto written on the hand, and then the impact that it's going to have. Now, there's also the same could be asked of the apostrophe in Divya. Again, I think it gives us a taste of the French influences. Because if you remember, going back in our deaf history, Laurent Clerc. Yes. While we're on this topic of language, why is this the sign for Surdism? Okay, Devia. I'll get to that. Right now, we're focusing on the Devia. So the sign is like this: deaf view image art. As if your palm, open palm, is the artwork. And I, as a deaf person, express my thoughts and put it on my open palm canvas, and then people can view my art. So I'm sorry that this picture is so blurry, but that is the only documentation of that event, of those who were old innovators in 1989. So what is the Devia movement? It really is an art movement. And it's based on the deaf experience. It has the intention to manifest the deaf experience. Devia is not an organization. You can't join as a member. There's nothing to join. And we are not angry artists. There's no anger involved. But it is more like truth telling. It shows the truth. It's not like we're throwing paint on the canvas in anger, but we want you to see the authenticity of our experience. And everything on our canvas has a meaning behind it. It's intended to be a wake-up call. But it's not angry art. What is the difference between deaf art and Devia? Deaf art is art made by a deaf artist, plain and simple. There's no theme necessarily. Their deafness is not involved in their artwork. It's general art, could be traditional art, modern art. It's artwork made by a deaf individual. Devia, however, is about the deaf experience. I'm going to show you now the Devia Manifesto, just to give you an idea of what the original document looks like. We wrote all the elements of the manifesto as clearly and simply as we could, because again, Devia is related to visual arts. That's all. It's the one element, visual artwork. You see all those signatures? In the 1990s, scholars found and started researching Devia. And they realized that it was a definite art movement, that you could see the themes that are replicated in various works of art. And then there's also various categories. There's affirmation, affirmative artwork. There's resistance. And then there's liberation, which combines elements of both the affirmation and the resistance. Now, the Surdism manifesto, in comparison, Surdism, you can see, is from the French man who made, the artist who made this. These are his colors: dark blue and gold and turquoise, a sort of a light blue. Sword means death in French. That term was coined by a deaf artist, the deaf-blind artist named Arnaud Ballard. And his name is signed this way, off the forehead. The sign for Surdism is your non-dominant hand stays still and the dominant hand points to the forehead and then moves out to the center of the pointing finger. Here's a video of Monsieur Ballard signing Surdism. Yeah, I'll play it again. Perfect, got it. All right. And this definition that you see of Surdism is translated from the original French. And you can see those are some mighty powerful words. Here in the United States, we use more, how shall I say, politic terminology. We use more polite terms, while the French use a lot more powerful words in their description. Devia includes activism, and we are committed to social justice, as is Surdism. Surdism tends to be more involved in politics through their art making. And unlike Devia, which is only visual arts, there's many kinds of art included in Surdism. This gives you an idea of what the Surdism manifesto looks like. And it goes into greater depth than the Devia. This was his first manifesto. He wrote this in 2009. And we have a Zoom question. The question is, are we going to repeat the question? The color choices, wait a minute, we got to get this question right. The color choices in Surdism, are those replicated in Devia art? Do they have the same meaning? And Nancy's clarifying, you're talking about the colors? No. The colors of the flag for Surdism, they have their own colors for Surdism that are on that flag. And they're different than the Devia colors. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So Devia and Surdism do overlap in some ways. And you can read this for evidence of what the similarities are. There's oppression. There's the deaf experience. It involves the arts. And creating a bridge between deaf people and the public. There is definite overlap. Okay. And so here you can see physically creating a bridge through time and space. Arnaud and I met in France. There was a French protest, let me see, in 2017. So I had met him before in 2012. He came to the United States before. So I had met him then. And then later I met him a couple more times. He came for the Devia curriculum instruction, and he taught us and indicated the elements of the Surdism flag. So this is considered the deaf flag. It's officially approved by the World Federation of the Deaf. This is the international flag for deafness. It's called the deaf flag because the sign, it's like the sign Union flag, like the Union Jack, but the sign Union flag. It also can indicate deafhood. The dark blue indicates deafhood. The gold means looking forward to the future. And the turquoise is unity. All right. Okay, one person asked if we could go back to this slide for a second. And we have a question from the in-person audience. Is Mr. Arnaud still alive? Yes, he is. Are you going to talk about his deaf blindness? But it's interesting that there's no blind or visual experience in this flag or included in his art. So I'm curious about that. Surdism definitely does include deaf blind experience as well. It includes a lot more than the categories of Devia. There are many genres. Surdism includes theater, poetry, written words, sign poetry, as well as visual arts. I'm wondering, because it only includes Surdism, there's no French word for vision there as well. So even in the title, it's not. And Nancy answers that's because it's in the manifesto. And when was the flag accredited by the World Federation? Just this past July 23 in Korea. Next slide. Okay, we've already covered this one. Now, my work. Oh, wait, going back one more slide. Hold on. There's somebody who has a question. Can you talk about this slide in particular, the red, yellow, and blue? Well, the flag includes the hand, which is included in the sign for signing. The dark blue indicates deafhood. The gold indicates our hope for the future. And the turquoise, the light blue, is unity. That's what the colors indicate. On this particular slide, the red is just my color that I put there. It's just for clarity of the slide. It's not, doesn't have a particular meaning for this. All right. Oh, wait, we have another question in the room. I'm wondering if coda artists are included in Devia. I'm never sure because I have, you know, it's a hearing experience that I've had, and I'm on the fence over whether codas can participate in Devia. And Nancy's answer is yes, it's collaborative. Interpreters anyone who really is an ally, a partner, a friend of the deaf community. Thank you for asking. Yes, codas are in. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit to focus in on my own work. Since 2009, that's when I started my journey with the primary colors of red, yellow, and blue. I decided to challenge myself to a limited color palette. And I knew that it would be tough to arrange things so that the color palette would work. But when it does work, it's magnificent, but it's not easy to pull off. The central focus, like the themes that I work on, and remember the themes and the categories, there are different symbols and motifs. For example, eyes, hands, ears, mouths. Those remain the same. There are other symbols involved in this as well. Now, as to the term Rourkeism, that was given as, and my name sign is N3 for the 3 colors that I use. This book is where I started my journey. Once I saw that book, I was curious as to what it was. I got it, I read it overnight, and changed immediately my approach to artwork. I got the itch. I wanted now to dive in, and ideas were percolating, and instantly I created a lot of new artworks based on this. So it was in 2009. And the idea for red, yellow, and blue, I don't know where that actually started. It was really out of the blue, as it were. It just happened. I just loved that color scheme. At first, I included green, and I don't know why. It was a struggle. It just didn't feel right for me. I decided to try without the green, and that worked. It gelled. So from then on, I don't use green in my artwork. Here are some examples of affirmative Devia paintings. The Right to be Deaf series was focused primarily on the category of resistance. And that showed the view, the experience of deaf children and deaf adults who are not allowed to be themselves. Here's a comment. I wonder if your native ancestry perhaps was included in your intention to use green. Perhaps, perhaps. Okay, another question from in the room. Oh, asking to repeat the question about the green being part of my native ancestry influence. The other category that we looked at is resistance. And then the artivism category and solidarity, especially for deaf people who are in prison. I made art about that specifically because that's not something that's seen. It's a calling. I have a calling to make art. Now, interesting. This is a two-way mirror with 2 double perspectives. It's a picture of a girl in school, and she looks happy enough. She looks like an innocent young child, but do you see something on her face? Something a little different? Yes, those marionette lines coming from her mouth. That means she's being forced, perhaps, to be oral in school. Now, why would this ear be focused on the back of the image? That is the behind the scenes, what the teachers, the audiologists, the speech therapist, all the paid helpers view this student as just one giant ear. They don't look at her as a human. She is not a human being. She is an ear problem to be solved. All right, now I'm curious. Some of you might be curious what I've been doing since the past few years. You know, COVID has limited travel, and all of my trips were canceled or postponed due to COVID. So I've been working on a book, an art book. I've already made 4 books. And now I'm finally back to working, back to traveling. And I'd say also making new art. I've got a lot of new ideas that I'm working through. I've been kept quite busy through all this time, even though you may not have seen me or new work. Now, this new work is called The Native Deaf Experience of Oppression. And this is a new category, a new motif that I've been working on. And I think I've been holding this in for a long time. I have not paid attention to this nagging feeling that I've had about incorporating the deaf native experience. And I think it is time to express this in my art. I recently went to Poland, this town, Katowice. And you can see on the gallery walls in this museum, it's their permanent collection. They have 3 deaf galleries of deaf history and deaf art. And they have included other deaf artists as well. They invited me to visit, and I saw all of the artwork there, as well as having some of my work included. In Minnesota, in the School for the Deaf there is this large mural. It includes BIPOC and deaf-blind people as well. And LGBTQIA community as well also participated in this. Irvine, California, University High School outside on the mural wall outside of the school building. It includes butterflies. This is in Kansas, KSD, Kansas School for the Deaf. It's a new mural that was just installed. Yeah, just recently. Wow. Yep, just finished it. This is at Gallaudet. You know, Dawes, that name Dawes has been removed. Dawes has retired. So now it's temporarily called Building 103. Yes. The building, do you know why the name was removed off of the Dawes building? I'm curious if there's a history behind that. Dawes was a man, Henry. He was a Massachusetts senator from a long time ago. At that time, he came to Gallaudet, and he was good friends with Edward Minor Gallaudet at the time that he was president, and they were closely aligned. Mr. Dawes was on the board. He contributed a lot of funding, gave a lot of support to Gallaudet. So that's when they decided to name the building after him in his honor. Until one deaf native person came to Gallaudet and saw the name Dawes there and was disgusted because of the oppression that Dawes had for Native peoples. And he spent years advocating at Gallaudet to have that name removed because of the impact on the Native community. So with apologies, Gallaudet removed that name from that building. So in the interim, it's referred to as Building 103, but there will be a healing ceremony, and there's a painting with Native peoples and Native signs that is part of this healing ceremony. Piscataway tribe in DC and the Maryland area. So incorporating their regalia and their signs. So I've included the signs for Indigenous or Indian, for Native, various signs included in this as we reclaim the building from its oppressive history. Next month, I'll be doing presentations in the Philadelphia area and some painting events. Next year, I will paint a new mural at MSAD in Minnesota. I will have a solo show in Poland with new paintings, in Toronto, with 15 new paintings that are not done yet. So I'm pretty busy with all of this. Now, what have I been doing while I've been here? The mural at the Governor Baxter School for the Deaf, Mackworth Island. This is the first step, the line work, the outline. So maybe you want to see what the colors will be. I'll tell you that's in process. It's 28 parts, components to this. And so here it is as it looks today. Still a work in progress, but we are definitely getting there. All right, so thank you. I want to leave that up there for a second. Some people have asked to see it more closely. We'll leave this image up. So we have a question on Zoom. The French artist who influenced your work, did he influence your color choices at all? And I'm going to say no, he didn't influence my color choices. Chagall, the French artist Chagall. Well, maybe a little bit, maybe a tiny bit, but I mean, I was inspired by Chagall's work. I do admire his work. So I will say that, but direct lineage, not necessarily. All right. Yay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy. If there are any questions from the audience at this point, I think we can open up the floor for any questions on Zoom or here in the room. There are about 40 individuals who are joining through Zoom and about 25 people in this room this evening, and it's really exciting to have everyone here. Sandra has a question.
I wonder, says Sandra Wood, specifically, I've noticed on some of these paintings, things that are not Rourkeism, but more abstract kind of artwork. How would you describe that? And Nancy's answer is, it's my style of artwork. Whatever comes to me is what I do. Now, other artists and their styles do influence me, of course. I do find inspiration in a few other artists as well, but I developed this as my own style.
Looks like we have a few questions here on Zoom. If you give me a moment. Somebody typed a whole paragraph here. So the question is about the mural you've brought to Maine. And what influenced that mural for you? What came to mind for you in creating that?
Well, really, Emily let me know certain elements to be included in the mural, and I then studied and learned about the history of the island, the history of the school, and I found some very interesting things. I relied on Emily. I videoed her in the museum. She recorded the museum. Emily took me on a video virtual tour of the museum on the island, and she showed me what the island looked like and what the trees are and which birds are here. So many famous faces of people who influence this, animals that are here on the island in Portland. So there are 28 different elements that are included. And also it is really pretty much based on a map. There's the road, that cute little causeway, and the road that goes around the island, which is just a walking path. I realized that it wasn't a paved road all the way around the island. So that was something that stuck with me as well. And I used that to play off of my ideas, showed things to Emily, and Emily approved the final design. And then I played with the colors to make sure there was a good balance. Don't want too much red on one side or too much blue on the other side. Make sure it works as a cohesive whole visually.
And to piggyback on that, we did have a lot of conversations with the senior citizen group here in the state. I have attended their events, had a lot of conversations, went through the museum to look at some of the archives to be included as well. It's just a beautiful piece of art. You'll have to come and look at it. Also, are there ever times when you divert from your three primary colors in your art?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to change, because based on my experience with the color green, nope. I'm going to stick with what's working. Red, yellow, and blue. It just seems to resonate for me and works with my style of art, but you never know. I won't say never.
Okay, we have a lot of questions here on Zoom, but are there any questions in our audience here from our audience here in the room? So when you're expressing yourself through your paintings, including your cultural experience, stories, your personal experience, do you feel that you're including other deaf experiences as well in your art?
Yes, I think the overall image as a whole needs to express the total deaf experience. It's not just my experience, but I do feel like I need to open up about the experiences that I've gone through and the Native experience. So yes, I do incorporate diversity as well. Yes, we have another question.
I apologize for leaving the room. I had an important call I had to take. So when we go back to your primary colors you utilize in your art, did you mention the symbolism behind the colors that you chose?
No, I haven't touched on that yet, so you didn't miss anything. So red is a powerful color. Yellow means looking forward, again, hopefulness for our future and that things will improve and change. And then the blue means oppression. And trauma. And wanting to do something about that, the trauma and the oppression. And then black and white have no particular meaning. They just help to make the colors come alive and be more bold. It's a good contrast. It helps the colors stand out more from one another. So if you look at my art, don't look at me. That's why I wear black all the time. Just look at the art.
Okay, this is a little bit of a complex question, so give me a moment. This is from Glenn. And perhaps reading it might be helpful to you. not sure if you already mentioned this in your presentation, but from the deaf perspective or looking at your art through a deaf lens and the manifesto written,
I mean, there's all kinds of mixed media involved and all kinds of things. You only have always been interested in painting, right? Yes. Yes, the answer is painting all the way. That is just my, it's just me. I thought that was a really good question. This is Amy. I want to make sure that we've got all our communication logistics set up. So your paintings, do you use a specific kind of paint or do you use a variety of paints? I do use oil. I love oil paint. But on my own free time, when I'm traveling, well, I do watercolors. I don't really like watercolors, but I've got a small travel case that just makes it easy to sit and make like sketches. I can't be without something to create art and paint wherever I go. So that just the watercolor kit makes it really easy.
question from Sandra Wood. I might have missed this in your presentation, Nancy, so forgive me if I did. I do recall you mentioning reading the Jeff Hood book, and that was an inspiration for your art and a sort of rebirth, if you will. But can you maybe talk a little bit about that first painting after you read that book?
Yes, my very first painting was Vedis, George Vedis. I didn't even know who he was before that. I happened to have picked him. Really odd, isn't it? Is there a coincidence or what? But looking back, I'm really amazed that that was who my first painting was of. Before I even knew who he was. Before I had discovered my red, blue, and yellow palette. That was in shades of brown. But after I started with my Devia style paintings, I had written a grant and I had to think specifically what I needed in terms of funding and what for to start my business. It's specifically by the structure of having the grant, I had to delineate all the things that I needed, a table, a camera, the specific art supplies to make a studio for a professional artist. And I had to show what I was making. The 7 first paintings that I did included the color green. Alice Cogswell, Gallaudet with Alice Cogswell together, the two of them together. The cup with hands, a coffee cup, showing the sign for that. Oh, what else was it? Speech. The speech therapist painting I did. The puppet, yes, the marionette speech therapist puppet painting. Let's see, I'd have to look what else it was. But those are my early paintings.
Another question from Zoomland, from your favorite person, Pinky. You are celebrating 15 years coming up soon. What will the next 15 years look like?
Well, Surdism has all those different genres. It's not only the visual arts. So I'm hoping for video and filmmaking about deaf artists. I'd love to see their experiences, what their lives are like on a daily basis. Can you imagine the frustration involved in that? Trying to be filmmakers? Wow, that is it. I think that really would be an interesting subject, ripe for exploration. I haven't seen any art movies, maybe Chuck Baird, but I'd love to see more about that. So taking it as a next layer of visual communication. filming deaf artists and their work and their cultures and their expression and the message they want to portray. So I think that's where I'm going to go next.
Do you do other types of art other than paintings?
Nope, just the painting.
But you mentioned you do some watercolors, some oil painting.
Well, yeah, but that's still painting, right?
True. Oh, we have a question from the audience. I'm a student and I'll be signing my question. So how many paintings have you created throughout your time?
Oh, geez, I've lost count. The last time I think I mentioned it was 3,000 the last time I talked about it, but now that number is far greater. So there you go.
So which one is your favorite painting?
Oh, really? I don't have a favorite, but I do like big paintings. The murals are my favorite medium, and the large scale paintings, like 30 by 40. Probably my first one of those. When we came, we saw, we conquered. That's one of my, I'd have to say that's one of my favorites.
And where is that?
It's in Gallaudet now.
Okay, next question. How old were you when you started painting?
Oh, 6. I think around 6. At that time, my parents didn't know until I was 6.
Your parents didn't know that you were deaf?
Yes, I was identified very, very late. So I had started drawing, and my parents saw my drawings and they saw that I had a natural talent. So I started at the age of 6 when I was first identified as deaf.
Question from the audience. This is Regan. So this is transitions nicely into the question I have. Chuck Baird's niece. And the interpreters are going to ask for some clarification. The interpreters are still attempting to ask for clarification before we proceed. So the question is, Chuck Baird's early works were based on music and sound. And so in terms of your work, prior to getting into Devia art, what would you say your genre was?
I did mostly abstracts. I played with color. I still love to play with color. The color wheel. Cups. I love cups. Different kinds of cups. Still lives. Flowers in vases. Not much in the landscape category, but some ocean work. At that time, I lived in California. I live in Colorado now. So that's kind of what I did before I got involved in Devia. And yes, the color palette was much different back then. More of earth tones. Yeah. Yes.
Question from the audience. Can you talk a little bit about the first time you met a deaf artist?
I met Uzi Belugo. Came from Israel to my hometown in Colorado. And I had a show of my work in a gallery at that time. And he really encouraged me to be more to go to Colorado, and that said that I could definitely do better than this locale I was in this small town. So I went to Denver. I was in a small town at that time. He invited me to his solo show, and I was fascinated with his work. He introduced me to a the director of that art gallery, and that's where things started. Took off from there. That I've known that person for many years.
And I apologize. I'm going to have to revert to Zoom now because there are some questions here. Incredibly powerful, the art that you produce based on the deaf experience. Do you feel that it's a way to elicit a more powerful response from the hearing community in terms of the deaf experience?
Oh, yes. Now that I have a book, in my book, I think that will help hearing people understand my work better than they learn from just looking at it.
And a message from Carrie, Linguistics 203 class, LAN 203 class, please make sure if you are a student in the class, make sure you sign in. The next question, how many murals have you painted?
Oh gosh, I'd say including your mural, I'd say maybe 38. 37 or 38. I'd have to look again, but including the newest mural here in Maine.
Okay. Moving on to the next question for Zoom. So in terms of the De Via Manifesto and Surdism, I'm still getting used to that sign, Surdism. Do you think that in terms of De Via, do you see it branching out into other forms of art?
Well, that is definitely a component of Surdism, and their manifesto has really taken off in other countries. I think that there is much more recognition now, and I think it's more visible because of the creation of the flag. Where do they sell the flag? I think I still need to research more. In the past, there was one organization that sold this flag, but they've run out. So I'm still researching to find out where one could buy the flag. I mean, I'll look into that. Yeah, this one's mine. I wear it like, oh, and my scarf. Thank you. I'm glad you like my scarf. It's my artwork. Yes, they are for sale. Yes, thank you.
Next question. Do you prefer painting solo or do you prefer collaborating with a team when painting your murals?
Oh, it depends. It depends.
I've had such a great time painting with you. Is this something that you enjoy as well?
Well, I love both, actually. I love working with people. I love working with children, and I enjoy working alone too. So a little of each. Yes, there's a question here.
Oh, wait, if you wouldn't mind pausing for a moment because we want to make sure Emily can mirror. Okay, you can proceed. I'm a new student and I'm just learning ASL. I really like watercolor painting. And it's something that I share with others. And I'm wondering, would you ever show your watercolors?
I haven't ever yet. Shucks.
Everyone is thanking you, Nancy, for coming here to New England. And we're just so thrilled to have you here. Welcome. Okay, question from Tommy Minch in the audience. So you spent the past few days on Mackworth Island and you've seen Chuck Baird's artwork that is in the school. Can you share some thoughts about that experience?
When I first saw Chuck Baird's painting, I never saw that particular artwork before. And what I first looked for was his signature. I'm always fascinated in the signature. So I looked around and looked around. I did not find a signature. And I was like amazed that there was no signature on this artwork. I could not believe it. That was my first reaction. You have an original Chuck Baird and it's not signed. But now I know why. Right? I'm not sure. I don't know.
Regan's question is the last painting that was commissioned was that one, actually. In fact, and Emily's just sharing the story behind the painting. Chuck came to Maine and did that painting, and he left the state. And when it was discovered that he hadn't signed the painting, folks called upon him, and he said, well, I'll be back to Maine and I will sign it when I come back. And then he passed away. Perhaps this is something that you've already stated in terms of Divya and your artwork. You feel that it elicits a powerful response in terms of the impact on the hearing community, understanding the deaf experience.
Yes, I believe it does, because when I do have a show, hearing people come up to me and ask questions, they're always curious about it and fascinated in the description and the answers.
We have a question from the audience here in the room. So you mentioned the power behind the colors you chose. Several deaf artists have a powerful color palette. I would assume, is that the case?
Yes, I think also because when you think about the collaboration and our mutual support and the mutuality of the deaf experience and the deaf art, I think that there's an echo of the colors that we choose.
And I'm so sorry for those of you who are in the room trying to ask a question. I'm also navigating some of the comments here and questions in Zoom. So I missed the question in the room. Could you repeat that, please? So going back to the question I asked a moment ago, so I know it was mentioned that a lot of deaf artists use very bold, powerful colors. And is there a collaborative sort of collaborative mutual respect among the community of deaf artists who use these powerful colors?
Yes, yes, I find it to be a very supportive deaf art community.
Another question from the audience here in the room. So you mentioned the colors that you use, and some have a more positive connotation to that color and elicit more of a positive response, whereas other colors like the black and the dark blue and maybe even the red depict the suffering or the more negative experiences. Is that how you've divvied up the colors?
Oh, yes, yes. The impact can also be quite heavy. The resistance art, what colors are those usually? That's red and blue or the black and white. Not much yellow used in resistance artwork.
What about affirmative art?
Yes, that's definitely stronger in the yellow and the white.
Do you find that to be commonality among other deaf artists?
Well, let me think. Yes, I believe so. Yep, I do think that. I see commonality. And also I see some artists use purple, pink, So others have a wider color palette than I do.
Okay, I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions from the room. Oh, looks like we have another one here. How do you feel when people share your art? Because it's such a personal expression. Is is that something you do not allow? Is it forbidden to copy? I mean, are there any copyright infringements when people share your art?
Well, if they share with permission, I'm okay with that. If I'm credited, then that's a crucial piece of it as well. Just taking my art, if I is not acceptable. But if I know a person or an organization and I'm willing to have my artwork used, it varies. It depends on the purpose and the use and relationship.
Another question from Zoom. You mentioned you started painting when you were 6 years old and you never really stopped. And that's really been a huge part of your journey. Was there ever a time when you wish you had done something else other than painting, other than art?
Never.
Okay, this one's a pretty big paragraph, so I'm going to let you read it because there's a lot to it. And I will do my best to paraphrase this for the interpreters. I've been following you for quite some time and your artwork, and there's one common theme that I've noticed, which is the symbolism of the elephant as a way of showing a negative connotation for AGB, Alexander Graham Bell. And the because of the essentially the discrimination in it being the elephant in the room. And do you feel that when people see that, they have a reaction to it? Because in deaf history, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to that symbol of the elephant in your painting.
Well, yes, and quite honestly, my family is one of them about the elephant in the room. I wrote it in my book. My parents read it and they did not like what I had to say. But you know what? Sometimes you have to name the elephant in the room. That's was my experience. That was my life growing up. I was oppressed and I am no longer interested in suppressing it and keeping quiet about it and laying down and taking it anymore. And to tell you the truth, after I showed my experience in my artwork and had that confrontation with my family, I feel so much better. I'm doing even more resistance artwork. I'm still fighting against A.G. Bell. That's a new one that I'm working on right now. I'm focused more on the resist.
Actually, and the family dog, the painting of that Susan Dupour did of the family dog was an incredibly powerful work of art that many deaf people showed their hearing family members to give their hearing family members insight into the deaf experience in a hearing family. It's very, very powerful. Couple more questions here. Wow. Just give me a moment. Who do you hope will follow in your footsteps?
I think more hearing people.
How about children, deaf children?
Anyone, yes, more, but focusing truly on enticing more hearing people to join in as allies. There's not enough hearing people who are on this journey with us.
So when it comes to developing the DeVia curriculum and educating those in deaf schools about the DeVia curriculum and working with deaf children and encouraging their expression of their journey through art, you'd like to see more of that happening as well?
Yes, that is definitely crucial. Okay, we've got a couple of questions in the back of the room.
Okay, we've got 3 questions in the back of the room. I haven't Chelsea, go ahead. We haven't called upon you yet. Do you enjoy teaching art?
Oh, I really do enjoy teaching art, definitely.
Okay, next question, Tommy Minch. Just mentioning this again, I know we did a painting in New Hampshire maybe 5 or 6 years ago with you, Nancy, when you came to New Hampshire. And I was texting a person in the University of New Hampshire to ask if your painting is still up in the university, and it is. And so I asked a friend of mine if they could take a picture of it so I could show it to you, which I will do. Amy Richardson has a question. I mean, there's a lot of symbolism in this art, oralism, oppression. Are there other types of symbolism like cochlear implants?
Oh, yes, definitely. At that time, when I first learned about the 12 children who died from their implant complications from the implant surgery, that was, I think, 1984 that I had heard about that. Once I learned that, I was devastated. And I tried to make art about that, even though I don't have an implant myself, but still, that happened to us, to members of our community.
Hunter has a question here in the audience. You know what? That's why I never want a cochlear implant. I don't want it to destroy. I mean, anything in me. I have a friend who has never been the same, and after his implant, that they just were never the same. And I would never want an implant. We have a question in the back of the room. So the Davia curriculum, I'd love to know more about that. And there's a question that is actually in Zoom about the same thing. Do you have anything published quite yet, or will you be publishing anything up on your site, your website?
Yes, we still have the Davia curriculum website, and we have a lot more materials and a lot of information now that we have not yet put on that website. My dream and my hope is that it will become published as a book, an actual paper book. That's something that I think we can't miss out on that. That's an opportunity we need.
I agree with you. And it's accessible by anyone. Any of you could access the Davia curriculum. Just type it into Google and you will come upon it. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of resources out there about deaf artists, and there's lessons from the curriculum, literature. There's motifs, video clips. There's a lot of information out there, so take a look at it. And then just doing a quick check here in Zoom. Doesn't look like there are other questions. We have a question from the room here and saying, this is my last question. And this is Marina speaking. So do you think you'll do more art that targets hearing viewers of your art, or
Yes, I have so much to do. I have a long list of everything that I want to do, and I know, where do you get started on all of this? I definitely wanted to create more art for hearing people.
And I think we are at the point in which we can wrap up unless I have missed any questions or comments from Zoom. And it looks like I have somebody who's saying, Nancy, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit more about the mugs. You mentioned you painted mugs, or you have paintings of mugs.
My first painting of a cup was through hand shapes, and it looked like somebody drinking tea from a cup. That was it. Nothing special, just using hands to indicate like this sign for cup, holding the cup, and the cup was hands. So
that was one of your first works of art?
Yes, yes.
Another question from the room. So talk a little bit about the books that you have come up with. What are they about?
Well, one is mine, Nancy Rourke, The Red Book. The other four are ABC portraits of deaf people throughout history. The second one is Davia, the generations of Davia artists, the three founders of Davia. And all three are now gone. So this is a book exploring their lives, their childhood, so that folks can be inspired by their lives. The third book is Deaf Artists, also through history, the deaf artists before Davia. I don't think they get enough recognition. There's one Black deaf artist from Mississippi. There's another artist from Montana, Native ancestry, another artist, let's see, Mexico, a photographer from Mexico, a deaf man. So it's the BIPOC recognition also that needs to be included. And there's fourth, the new one is Veditz, about his life, George Veditz, and his childhood up until his death. So I think these are important things for youth to have access to.
And I think it's time to wrap up. I have to just admit that I'm pretty exhausted, as I can imagine you are too, Nancy. We've got a lot of different events happening throughout the week. Tomorrow night is it's a cultural panel that will be happening on Zoom. If you look at the Maine Association for the Deaf website, Facebook page, you can see the link there to access tomorrow night's cultural panel. And I cannot recall the time. You would have to check. Friday evening, we've got the paint night with Nancy Rourke, which is exciting. It's easy to sign up. Go to maindeafarts.com and you can sign up. We've got a few seats left, 10 actually. So you better grab your tickets while you can. It's a free event. Sign up through the website. Saturday is the Deaf Culture Festival that will be happening on Mackworth Island. Throughout the day, there will be vendors, activities for children, and it's a pretty exciting day. And I do see more questions coming through, and I want to apologize in advance that we do need to wrap up. We do have a recording of tonight's talk that will be posted up on the YouTube channel, on Nancy's YouTube channel. So if you would like to review that, you can access it there. Would you like to see who's on Zoom? And those of you want to show yourselves and turn your cameras on so Nancy can say hello.
Hello, my microphone's working. I can't get my speaker to work.
Hello. Hello. Everybody's coming up on the screen here. Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, wow. That's amazing. There's a whole classroom here. Amazing. So thank you. Everybody's thanking you, Nancy. Thank you, everyone who's joined through Zoom. Have a good evening.